very warm welcome to the FSB webinar in conjunction with Microsoft, empowering SMBs, navigating the world of M365 security and Copilot. Today, I'm joined by Sarah and Gemma from Microsoft. Sarah is the Copilot business lead for small businesses at Microsoft, bringing a decade of experience in technology, people, and organisational strategy. And Gemma is the small business sales lead for modern work and security within the UK. Topics covered in today's session include: number 1, understanding basic security. Learn essential security practices to protect your business from cyber threats. Number 2, introduction to Microsoft 365 Copilot. Explore how Copilot can help you connect with and grow your customer base, build your brand, and scale your business securely. Number 3, leveraging Copilot Chat. Understand the capabilities of free, secure Copilot Chat for all of your employees. And number 4, strategic AI integration. Gain insights into developing an AI strategy tailored to your small business needs. So today's session will be recorded, and it will shortly be available on our on-demand page on the FSB website. And this is at www.fsb.org.uk in case you want to watch it again. And if you aren't yet an FSB member, we'd love to have the opportunity to speak to you further about the benefits of joining. So please, again, visit our website to book a meeting with a membership advisor. So now I'm going to hand you over to Sarah and Gemma.
Hi everyone, and thank you very much for having us. My name is Gemma Dyer and I'm the SMB Modern Work and Security Lead for the UK market, and I'm joined today by Sarah Bain, who's our SMB Copilot Business Lead for the UK. And we're really excited today to be talking to you about all things modern work, security and Copilot. So I'll hand over to Sarah, who's going to kick us off.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us today. So as you can see, most businesses are starting to transform using AI already, and AI is already in the workplace. So we see that over 75% of people are already using AI in some shape or form at work. And specifically within SMBs, 80% of those users are bringing their own AI. And so often as leaders, you have to think about how you do this in a safe and secure, compliant manner, and able to use productivity and AI at scale. When we look at SMBs specifically, we often see that they struggle to find the time, the innovation and the data needed to grow. So many people feel that leftover hangover from the pandemic of the amount of emails, notifications, calls, phone calls, and data that they get on a daily basis. So 71% of SMBs feel like they lack the energy to get their day-to-day work done. And I'm sure many people listening to this might feel the same. As a result, 67% believe that they struggle with the innovation needed to then think strategically. And 61% of SMBs believe they spend too much time searching for the right data or information when they need it. This is all from our work and our annual Work Trend Index survey, which studies how people in 31,000 different businesses are all working, leveraging different AIs. So AI can transform business growth. And what we find is we're in this kind of sweet spot that any technology transformation goes through, where you start off thinking about your own individual personal productivity. What are the efficiency, the time savings and the creativity that you as an individual could gain? But also as a business, what can you do to impact your business overall? So is it revenue growth? Is it cost optimization? Is it the employee well-being of yourself or your colleagues? And quite often we're thinking about how could AI help you to increase the value across your business. So when we surveyed leaders and users, both understood the potential of AI for small businesses, but are slightly hesitant. So although SMB leaders, we've got 79% say that they believe AI's adoption will be critical for their company in order to maintain a competitive edge. They're 80% bringing their own AI tools. However, only 49% feel like they are reluctant to admit using AI on the most important tasks. And one analogy to think of that I quite often use here is People would never feel embarrassed to use spell check or a calculator when doing their work. And AI is starting to be that technology. So thinking about that reluctance to admit how you use AI with really important tasks. So when we think about leaders and those similarities across all businesses, Gemma's going to talk a little bit about business needs on this subject.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. So when we think about SMBs today, the day-to-day running, regardless of your industry verticals, how your IT is set up, we found that there are actually 4 common needs for SMBs. The first is that you need to be able to run your business using tools and implementing efficient systems that foster that creativity, that collaboration and productivity. You need to be able to build your brand, and you want to be able to deliver consistent, recognizable brand presence and effective customer experiences. You also want to be able to grow your customer and build trust and attract new customers through open collaboration and regular connections. And then finally, SMBs want to be able to protect and manage their team resources from common cybersecurity effects that we have. If we could just go to the next slide, please. So to meet those business needs, customers need an end-to-end technology solution. And for those that aren't already an M365 customer today, we have found that 5 reasons why SMBs are actually choosing M365. So the first is that customers want to have one unified productivity experience. It's one solution that brings together the industry standards, offline accessible applications, Gen AI, Microsoft Teams, comprehensive security, compliance, and identity protection. The second reason is just having collaboration tools that enable you to work from anywhere that you choose to. And M365 really offers that flexibility and a ability to collaborate with everybody, whether you work on email, whether you work on Teams, whether you work on your mobile. You can collaborate with people on real time, share and collaborate with documents anywhere you choose to, whether that's through chats, through voice, or shared meetings. The third one is around security, and security is becoming such a top priority for SMBs, which I'll discuss later. And Microsoft have really become a leader in this space. M365 really provides that protection across your data, advanced protection, compliance, so that you can access at a granular level from your admin portal, so the right people have access to the right information in your portals. The fourth is around Copilot, and having an integrated AI has become a real popular reason that customers are switching to M365. So with the addition of M365 Copilot, you have a sophisticated AI assistant wherever you choose to work within M365, whether that's in Teams, whether that's in Excel, whether that's in PowerPoint, and that's something Sarah's going to cover later. And finally, there's a big aspect around cost savings. And on average, our SMB customers are saving 60% by consolidating into one solution. If we just go to the next slide, please. So on that topic of cost savings, it's probably more challenging than ever to be a small business. And it was found that 80% of businesses experience an increase in costs over the last year. So finding those cost savings and efficiencies have been more important than ever. Just go to the next slide, please. So we've definitely seen a big shift when we talk about consolidating vendors to gain those cost savings. And if you pair that with the AI investment that customers are making to get those productivity gains, and if we just reflect on what Sarah was saying, that 80% of AI workers in SMB are actually bringing their own AI to work, I think that really just showcases what the potential opportunity we have, which is huge, but that does actually pose some security risks if you're not using a secure AI. Let's go to the next slide, please. So security has become more critical for small businesses. And I just wanted to take you through what the top cybersecurity trends that we announced in our latest SMB security research report, just to provide some context. So the report found that 94% of SMBs actually consider cybersecurity critical to their companies. And unfortunately, 1 in 3 SMBs have been victim to a cyber attacks. And now on average, an average cyber attack for an SMB is £250,000, all the way up to 7 million. We've also found that SMBs are really ready to invest in the era of AI, and we've reported that there's been such increased needs for data protection, and 80% of SMBs intend to increase their cybersecurity spend. So although all employees are already using AI, it's really important that employers are actually embracing that change and giving employees a safe version of AI. And we do often get pushback from our customers that they're worried about AI from a security perspective. But actually what we've heard is employees are actually using it. So how do we empower them with a safe version? We did run a survey that found out what the top security challenges are for AI adoption. And I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that we found that 80% of leaders shared that their their biggest worry was sensitive data leakage being their primary concern for not wanting to use AI. And there's some really quick wins that you can just roll out in Business Premium, such as data loss prevention policies and security policies to make sure that you can use AI safely in your business. If we just move to the next slide, please. So just to go slightly deeper into security, so not only are companies using AI to be more effective, but unfortunately so are hackers as well. They're using it for phishing attempts. They're using AI to exploit passwords. They're using it for deepfake videos where they're impersonating senior leaders with really resonating videos and voiceovers to make it really, really believable. So it's never been more important to invest in security. And if we just move to the next slide, please. So cybercrime is now the third biggest economy globally. The speed, the scale, and the sophistication of cyber attacks is increasing rapidly for both customers and for Microsoft. And when someone falls victim of a phishing email, the average time for an attacker to get access to your private data is now just 1 hour and 12 minutes. So really, really speedy. And from a password attacks, that's increased tenfold, and we're now seeing at least 30 billion per month. So customers really need a full protection or an end-to-end security solution. So what do we mean by that? So Microsoft security covers 4 main areas, and that's emails, your endpoints, your identity, and your workloads. So if I just give an example of how a ransomware attack can happen, it typically starts with a phishing email, which is clicked on by a user, and then the attacker can exploit the vulnerabilities in the device and gain full control, establishing a foothold within your network. The attacker then targets your user credentials, gradually escalating the privileges across all of your different systems, and that's where they can get access to sensitive data. Your privileged accounts are then compromised, and then the attacker is able to bypass any weak authentication methods. For example, if you haven't turned on multi-factor authentication. And this is unfortunately where the attacker can cause the most damage. So when you have multiple vendors or even gaps in your security posture, this approach becomes then quite ineffective, and then the different security tools aren't able to communicate with each other. So I know what you're thinking. Of course, Microsoft is recommending having one security solution. So if we just go to the next slide, please. Well, actually, Forrester have released a non-biased report for our SMBs, and they actually found that when customers standardize on Business Premium and E5 security, they see a 60% cost saving, and that can be just from the time savings alone, from not having to negotiate different contracts. So there's lots of savings that can be capitalized on that. They also found that there was a 72% reduced likelihood of a breach with Microsoft security, and 88% reduced time responding to threats. And that's because of the automation around Microsoft security, that they automatically respond to threats and only bring the critical threats so that you don't have to investigate those yourself. If we could just flip to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to close this so that we could talk to you about the licenses that you would need if you were taking on what we've just said in this session. And we divide our licensing between bigger customers and smaller customers. So if you have under 300 employees, you need Business Premium, E5 Security, and Copilot. And then if you're a larger organization, which is 300 seats and above, that's an M365, E5, and Copilot license. But I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to talk about Copilot in more detail.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Gemma. So we heard from Gemma there really around how important it is to protect your data. And we're getting more and more customers interested in using AI and M365 Copilot within the workplace, but really want to set up that strong foundation for trust and security within their organization. And so this roadmap really takes you on a journey of how you can protect your data to drive AI-powered productivity within your business. And so what I want to really hone in on here is that when you're using M365 Copilot or Copilot as a solution, that our foundations are built on trust. So over the last few years, you'll have seen a real rise in the amount of AI technologies that are available. And this is absolutely critical to when you think about our commitments and how you work with Microsoft technologies. So firstly, we secure your data in rest and in transit. You control your data. Your data is not used to train or enrich foundational models. So if you're putting in confidential data into a new product you're launching or some market research, that is your data. We do not use that to train or enrich our foundational models. And finally, you are protected against AI security and copyright risks. This is incredibly critical to our policy around AI and Microsoft more broadly as well. So we've spoken about Copilot a few times, so we're going to spend a few minutes level setting on what Copilot is. So first of all, we have our Copilot Chat, which is a way for every organization, no matter what your size, to quickly and securely scale AI so that you don't have a single employee who's not able to tap into AI. Copilot Chat is free and it kind of includes these three different areas. So chat, so that is your free AI secure chat. It's powered by GPT 4.0. So if you're using another in the browser web-based search functionality for AI, really encourage you to use this because we're not going to learn from your data. It's completely yours, it's secure, it's safe. And like I say, this is a free solution that is available to you. And then in addition to chat, we've also got agents. So on top of the chat solution, you're able to provide a way to automate business processes. So they're through kind of an intuitive chat experience and they come in different flavors. So you've got free agents grounded in things like instructions and public websites and files, all the way through to more complex agents, which we'll come on to. And finally, you've got those IT controls as well. So if you're thinking about, at the beginning, I said 80% of SMBs are bringing their own AI into the workplace. If you're seeing that, if it's either you or people you work with, this is a great way to make sure that you're using AI in a really safe and secure manner. So that's an intro to Copilot Chat. Moving forward, you've then got our best in class, which is M365 Copilot. I know, not confusing at all, both Copilots, both got 365 in there, but M365 Copilot is everything that I've said before, but it is grounded in your work data. So before, where it could reason over things in the web, what M365 Copilot is able to do is reason over everything that is in your M365 environment. So think about emails, meetings, notes, documents, SharePoints. It's able to reason over all of that work data, which is incredibly rich if you think about different projects you're working on, collaboration, for example, as well. The second thing that's really differentiates it is at home in your M365 applications. So that means it's in Outlook, it's in Word, it's in PowerPoint, it's in Teams. So if you're using those applications already, and say, for example, you're using it in the browser, free tool at the moment, there's a likelihood that you're copying and pasting things over into the browser, which is pretty tough to do when you start thinking about an Excel file or a PowerPoint document. Also means I haven't written an email myself in about 6 months because I can do it all directly within Outlook. So it's at home in those applications. And then likewise, we can extend into Copilot Studio and agents. And also you've got tools within there to help with adoption and measurement. So I've mentioned agents a couple of times and it feels like a bit of a buzzword in the market, and definitely feeling like a lot of SMBs are having conversations around cost pressures in the market and where can they leverage agents to be able to do more. And so if you think about Copilot agents on this spectrum, and at one end you've got simple all the way through to advanced. So simple retrieval agents are retrieving information that already exists. So think about if you've got an area in which you're already saving client information, for example, or product information, and you're constantly looking through different documents to try and find it, you could very quickly set up a retrieval agent, which is able to go and reason over the data that already exists and bring that back to you. Task is then taking it a step further. So it's able to reason over that information, but then start to automate a workflow. And then all the way through to autonomous. So this is when they can operate independently and dynamically and orchestrate multiple agents. And at our Microsoft Build conference a couple of weeks ago, we announced a lot of announcements around how we see multi-agent management moving forward in the future. So this is going to be a really hot area for SMBs who obviously you're wearing multiple hats. You've probably got people doing multiple jobs, and so it's able to kind of create some of that simplicity for you and extend the team that you're working with. So that's a brief introduction to agents, but it's really important to remember that AI is not really about the technology. It's about what it's enabling you to do and the impact that it can have on your business. So from business value, costs, and your employee experience. We've surveyed SMBs specifically who use Copilot, and they are already seeing massive, massive value. So this is an independent Forrester report that found that projected ROI of over 353%. And then at the lower end, so if you've just got that kind of Copilot chat, or you're just using it maybe within Outlook and Teams, 132% ROI. So the ROI is pretty incredible, and you can imagine, in a fast-paced environment, to stay ahead of the competition, lots of businesses are using these tools, and you can see, it represents quicker, faster time to market, reduction in operating costs, and that employee satisfaction. So you might have seen lots of Copilot case studies online for big companies, but we have many SMBs who are also going all in with Copilot too. So I encourage you to take a look online at our different case studies. I've pulled out 4 UK examples of different SMBs within the UK market who are using Copilot across their businesses, and they're able to maximize efficiency and tap into that kind of Microsoft graph of data within the organization. If you're already using Copilot or another technology and you don't feel like the same rewards are being seen within your business, I encourage you to think back to the prompts that you're putting into when you're using AI. And we like to use this analogy of prompt ingredients of GCSE, which is an acronym that's quite hard to forget for many on the call. And so GCSE, this is a great slide to snippet. So it's goal, context, source, and expectation. And you can see here we've broken down how you could go about creating a prompt to cover these 4 areas. And actually I have it in front of my desk, because quite often you can think, oh, I asked Copilot or the AI solution that I'm using for some to help me with something, and it's not really giving me what I need. So context really is needed to help build out these successful ingredients to make a prompt. So when you have a little look, so goal, what response do you want? So generate 3 to 5 bullet points. Context, to prepare me for a meeting with client X to discuss phase 3 of a brand campaign. Source, focus on my emails and Teams chat since June, and expectations. Please use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. You can see as soon as you've read that prompt, there's probably areas in which your prompts haven't been covering all 4 of those GCSE frameworks. So the other area that you can consider to look at when you're thinking, oh, I'm not necessarily seeing all of these benefits across my usage of AI and Copilot within my organization. So I really recommend having a go at these top 10 try firsts. So like I said, summarizing different things can be a great place to start. So the number one quick way to see value, I think, from Copilot is within Teams. So if you're using Teams already, recapping a meeting is fantastic to help you stay ahead of topics, action items. Quite frequently, as a call's wrapping up, I can already get it to help me write the email as the follow-up. So recapping in a Teams meeting is a really helpful place to start. A lot of us spend a lot of our time in meetings and emails, so you can see why the top 3 are in Teams and in Outlook. So 2 of the things here, so summarizing an email thread is another really good way to help you stay ahead of tasks. This is a great thing to do if you are coming back from annual leave, for example, and you feel like your inbox is out of control. I quite frequently use summarize an email thread, and it helps me so I don't have to keep scrolling back through lots of emails. Likewise, I mentioned that I very rarely write my own emails, so quite often get Copilot to draft an email for me. So really recommend maybe taking a screenshot of this and thinking about where you could start with your own usage across these 10 different areas. You can see at the bottom there's a prompt gallery that we've created. And in there, we've built out scenarios and different prompts to get you started. And one of the things that I'm really conscious of with an SMB is, like I said before, you quite frequently are wearing multiple hats. So if one day you're doing some marketing and then the afternoon you're the finance director, actually what's really good in the prompt gallery is it's built out different prompts to help you based on different scenarios. So if you are needing to be your CMO one day, but you don't feel like you've got the know-how on all things marketing, or for example, you're not so confident on social media, there are lots of prompts that we've built out for you to get you started in there. So really encourage you to take a look at those. Likewise, I would encourage you to have a look at our SMB Copilot Success Kit, which is a kit which is curated of different assets to help you accelerate yours and your team's onboarding. Because ultimately, when you start using these technologies, you have to start thinking in a different way. It's not as easy as people often think, as ultimately you're deciding, when do I work with a human being, when do I work with myself, and when do I work with AI? And so within this kit, we've built out best practices and learnings of our own early adopter customers, as well as our own AI journey. And there's several tools in here, including implementation guides. There's lots in here around security. As Gemma outlined before, we've got lots of customers who are thinking about how they can equip their businesses to approach AI in a secure manner. So there's lots of technical readiness and adoption guides in here to help you with that, as well as kind of implementation kits, etc., emails, and so on. So this is relevant for businesses of all shapes and sizes. So I'd really recommend you tap into this resource, which is really helpful. Okay, and with that, we are gonna switch over to Q&A. I've popped back up Gemma and my's names and titles there. You can find us on LinkedIn if you'd like to follow us. We quite frequently post lots of product updates and announcements and blogs, customer stories. So feel free to follow us and keep up to date with what we share. And with that, I'll hand back to Sarah.
Thank you very much, Gemma and Sarah. That was extremely insightful, and I can see that there's been quite a lot of questions already asked in the Q&A section, so we'll go through some of those. But just to sort of kick us off, I've had a question in from Emma, and I think this might be directed at you, Gemma, actually, so hopefully you can help here with this one.
Sure.
So the question is, I'm using third-party products for security and worry about putting all my eggs in one basket. What are the benefits to consolidating into Microsoft?
Perfect. Great question. Thank you. So I've spoken about some of the benefits today, and I think when I have quite a lot of conversations with customers, they are typically using point solutions. They're using kind of M365 and then maybe a security solution for emails, a different security vendor for your endpoint security. Typically, actually, customers miss out their identity protection, so there's gaps in their security posture. And what this means is that if you think about that graph that I showed you when I was talking about an end-to-end security solution, it means those different tools aren't speaking to each other. They're not communicating. So when you're getting threats in different aspects, so if you're getting an email threat, your endpoint security solution doesn't know that you've got an email threat. So the amount of hours from IT you're having to spend on bringing down those threats and then setting up more solutions. So there's a huge time saving would be number one. I think it was 88%, I think I said earlier, of less time spent on responding to those threats. But also the savings. So 60% savings that we're seeing from customers, because those point solutions are really expensive. And plus with all of the hours that you're having to spend responding to those threats. So that's how I typically say to customers about that. But also, look, if you're worried about, you want the best security solutions, right? So I would encourage you to go and look at Forrester and Gartner, who, we're in the Magic Quadrants for all of our security solutions. So I'd really go recommend you read our reports as well if you wanted some sort of third-party backing.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Really helpful there, and that's explained that really well. I've had another question in here, and I think this one's more for Sarah, from Mohammed. The question is, I'm already using Chat GPT. Why should I use Copilot instead?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so at the beginning of the presentation, we spoke about the fact that we see SMBs already using AI at work, that 80% figure, and ChatGPT would definitely be one of those technologies because there's been a lot in the media, and a lot of people have created some funny poems and had to play around with it, recipes and things like that in their personal life. So fantastic that we've got people already dipping their toe. I think it's a really good sign. And a lot of people are using that in their personal life and then thinking, what does this mean now in a business context? So it's a great indicator that question's come in. The first thing to really point out is that security conversation that we're having. So we do not train or enrich our models based on what you use Copilot for. And so if you were working on a confidential document, if you were working on client sensitive information, Do you really want to be popping that into an AI model, which is going to be learning and training those models? And so keep your information, and that's why I would really encourage you to use Copilot. It is the first point I'd kind of get across. And like I said, we've got Copilot Chat for free. So if it's because you're using another solution that's free, there is Copilot Chat for free, and your data is your data. So that's really where I'd start. And then, of course, we would love you to be using M365 Copilot. And the real difference there between that and what you see in other technologies, other AI technologies, is that that's then grounded in your web data and it's in M365. And so that means it's got all of the information that you do as an individual, nothing more, nothing less. So if you've got information to your emails, your meetings, your notes, your documents, and you have Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc., then it is going to be able to reason over all of those things and then produce content within those documents. So two massive differentiators from a Copilot standpoint, in addition, obviously, and most importantly, to the security piece. So really encourage you to think about which technologies you're using, where you're putting your information, whether it's AI or separate to that as well. Security really needs to be the starting point.
They're really helpful. And I'm actually just thinking about that, Sarah. So in terms of how we get on with our day-to-day work, what's the quickest value we can see from using Copilot? I know you highlighted a few examples in the slide, which we hope people have screenshot today, but is there anything else you wanted to add?
I would say, like, leave this call and try a GCSE is number one. So I would definitely, if there's something that you've tried before and thought, oh, AI is not going to help me, it's really not going to help. Have you used GCSE? Have you given it a go? Have you got a task to do today? I guarantee there's one task that you've got to do today that GCSE would help you with. So if you do it today, then you'll learn it and you'll see how that kind of changes the way in which you prompt. So definitely do that. And then I would encourage you, what are the tasks that take you the longest? That's where you're going to feel the quickest saving. And so, those repetitive tasks like email, nobody likes them. We all know that we spend the majority of time on our email when we want to spend the least amount of time on our email. So I would say look at where you spend, the hours in the week, and think about where you can get the quickest return on your investment. And it might not be email, it might be something else. Maybe it's an agent that could help you. But yeah, I'd start with the GCSE, and then I'd think about like doing a bit of an audit really on where's your time being spent, where is the quickest win to be had. And I bet there's a way in which AI could help you with that.
Thank you so much there, Sarah. And Jen, we had a question in from a Naz, and Naz has asked, I'm a very small business. What is the minimum license you recommend?
So for a very small business, we recommend Business Premium. So Business Premium, if you're going to be looking into your AI journey, Business Premium has something called information protection, which is going to help you set data loss prevention policies to keep your data safe. So if you are using prompts within Copilot, it means the right people can access the right data, which I think is quite a key point. But it also, of course, got Defender for Business, multi-factor authentication, so a real basic level of security that we recommend to all customers.
Thank you so much. And we have lots of questions, obviously, in the chat, and we're going to try and answer as many as we can in the Q&A. So if we go over to Girish, Girish has actually mentioned here, the new Outlook has a limit of 10 accounts, which they feel is quite sad. Hence, they're sort of looking to stay on the old version of Outlook. So are there any comments you wanted to sort of make with regards to Girish's comments?
Happy to. I can look that up offline, and I can send a link. I'm not 100% off the top of my head, but that's something I can follow up on.
That's great. We can do that. That's lovely. Thank you so much for that. And we also got a question here from Corinda. And Corinda says, what are the biggest challenges that SMBs with disabled employees or customers face when adopting M365 and other digital tools?
So the biggest blockers was that?
Sorry,
Sarah, did you say it was what were the biggest blockers from an accessibility?
barriers, I think it was said.
Biggest barrier.
Do you want to go, Sarah, or do you want me to go first?
Well, so first of all, I was going to plug that it's such a big topic that we're doing a completely dedicated webinar with FSB on accessibility. So in the follow-up to this, there's 2 more webinars that we're doing, this series of 3. Today's the first. And Hector Minter, who's doing the third, is fantastic. He's the, I think he's the EMEA accessibility lead at Microsoft, and he is fantastic. So would really encourage you to join that, because we're going to go through a lot of tips and it will be really valuable. And I'd actually say from a barriers perspective, we see some of the biggest return on investment with those with a neurodivergent or certain accessibility need, because the way in which the technology can help is fantastic. So that's why we're going to dedicate a whole session to it. So I really encourage you to come along to that. And we've actually done certain studies with Copilot specifically with neurodivergent and dyslexic users. You can imagine the return on investment for those individuals is enormous, because you don't have to think so much about your spelling and your grammar, and you're able to really free up your time to talk about that kind of high value work, and spending time on more meaningful tasks. So please come along to that session.
No, thank you very much. We're going to highlight that, so that's fantastic that you've mentioned that.
So just some top tips as well, that you can start using today. So at Microsoft, we're always really encouraged to make sure any content that we share is accessible. So you've got the accessibility tracker. It's in Outlook, it's in PowerPoint, for example. So you can just click that button and it will give you recommendations of how you can make your emails or your presentations more accessible. So I'd recommend just going to use that today, just to support with that as well.
That is a fantastic top tip. Thanks, Gemma, for sharing that one. Natalie here has asked a question. So how do I go about using Copilot? I know we've covered a lot in here today, but really I think the question more so from Natalie is, how much does it cost?
Well, so like I said before, I would really encourage you to start playing today with the free version, which is Copilot Chat. And so totally free if you're already a Microsoft customer. So you've already got M365, or you've got Business Standard, Business Basic, Business Premium. You can go ahead and start playing with that now. So that's the first thing to really make you aware of. So to an extent, there's a lot of functionality that you've already got for free. What I talked about, though, moving on, was the M365 Copilot, which is where you're able to reason over your work data, and it also shows up within each of your M365 applications. So there is a cost per month on that, and it slightly varies depending on how you transact. So what I'd recommend you to do is have a look at how you already purchase your Microsoft licenses. Talk to the partner that provides those to you, and they'll be able to give you a quote.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So I'm going to move over to a question from Matthew now. And Matthew has said, you mentioned the use of retrieval augmented generation, which is RAG, within Copilot. How are you addressing or controlling for confabulation, where the model generates plausible but incorrect or fabricated information, which prompts or outputs? So I can say the question again, it's quite a long one, but I thought it's quite an interesting one.
I think so. I think what you're saying is, when we're creating agents, how do we make sure that the output of those agents is reasoned and I'm guessing is correct? That is that as a summary.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, the output of any prompt or agent is only going to be as good as the data that is reasoning over. And so if you're using a data source which doesn't feel correct or that has discrepancies, then it's only going to provide an output of data that is representative of that data set. And so I would really encourage you to think about what the data is, and making sure that the data is as correct and organized as possible. So it's less about the agent or the Copilot functionality, and it's much more about the data that it is reasoning over.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I've got another question here from Mick. So Mick's asking, can Copilot interpret any data with any financial software such as Sage? So that's just one example.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I'd need to double check Sage for you. The amount of APIs that we are releasing on a daily, weekly basis is pretty phenomenal. I would imagine there's a good chance Sage, given it's a well-known brand, but I would double check that for you. But it's great to see that, like what I was saying, the amount of investment in those APIs to be able to reason over the data now means that you can build agents which aren't just in M365, but are different applications that you use. So financial data could be an example. I see a lot with CRM, client management systems as well. Gemma and I were at an event recently with law firms, and a lot of them were using a different system to hold all of their confidential client information. Again, it's able to reason over those. So both from a interrogating using Copilot, but also using agents to reason over where that data is stored. So leave the Sage specific one with me. I would be surprised if it's not already in the pipeline, because there's a lot of that kind of API plugin functionality that's coming down the line.
Thank you. So we've got a question here from Av. Av's asking, can Copilot create videos?
Can it create video? That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure on that. Not that I've seen, but there are some create capabilities which we released very recently, which are going to really help from that kind of marketing and standpoint of what visuals look like, what you would share on socials, for example, and likewise when you're creating really engaging presentations. But I've not seen a specific one when it comes to videos, no.
There's lots of questions, some great questions here, Gemma and Sarah. So we're going to go over to Neil Sharp. Neil, even though data does not enter the foundation model, where is it stored? Could it presumably be, but where are the servers outside UL? I meant UK, actually. I think you meant to put UK. I'm reading as it is.
Sure. So your data resides in the tenant location that's set up in your admin portal. So if you set that up in the UK, the data resonates in the UK. And then from an M365 Copilot, if that's what you're referring to, any questions that you ask in Copilot is all kept within your tenant. So the security and compliance levels that you set at a tenant level expand into Copilot. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think it has. So thank you very much for answering that question. I've got a question here from Valeria. And Valeria is asking, is Chat Copilot safer than WhatsApp chat?
I don't want to comment on WhatsApp, but I can guarantee that, like I said before, all of the security parameters around Copilot Chat. So we do not train or enrich on your data to inform our foundational models. I would very much encourage you to be using Copilot Chat over WhatsApp. There have been a number of high-profile cases, as we are all aware, from Copilot and the leakage there. But it's not a Microsoft technology, so I wouldn't be able to comment further. But we can definitely rest assured that using Copilot Chat or M365 Copilot is incredibly secure for your business.
Thank you. And I know we've talked about APIs, so I've got a question here from Laura. We've just started using ChatGPT API as an application in our training platform. Can we use Copilot as an API?
Yeah, lots of APIs. Please engage with Copilot and have a little look. Like I said, that there are new releases coming out very quickly, thousands of different APIs.
And I've got another question here, one from Craig, who also refers to ChatGPT, but Copilot as well. So if Copilot doesn't learn from our data like ChatGPT, how is it able to provide up-to-date and valid information in answers?
So there's a couple of different things, I guess, that we're alluding to there. So it does learn about you as an individual. But as Gemma said before, that is within your own tenant. It resides within your own tenant. So it's then not given back to us. So for example, when I started using Copilot, I used to say things like, this sounds far too American, or this sounds too cheesy. I don't sound like that. And it's able to learn more about how I work, or for example, certain acronyms that I use every day. It then knows that that acronym is related to the acronym that I always use versus another one that might be available. So it does learn those things. It's not then passed back to Microsoft. It resides in your tenant. Likewise, I think what you're saying is there's a lot of iterations as well that happen to Copilot, and it's always improving. But that is not based on your own inputs into that data. That is completely separate. So you can rest assured that we are not using that to then train the model for improvements.
Thank you. So I know you mentioned tenant there in your answer. So we have a question here from Pamela. It says, you talk about your information staying in your tenant, but as you train your agent, could information to share with Copilot be shared incorrectly with another member of your team in your same tenant?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We get a lot of nervousness around people within the team seeing one another's information. And you can really rest assured that you only have access to the information that you as an individual have access to. So it's not just agents, that's on M365 Copilot as well. So the question we always get asked is, will my team know my salary? Can I ask Copilot my salary, or can I ask something really confidential? It cannot. It only, and it goes back to the previous question around the accuracy of data. It's reasoning over the information that it already has. So if I have access to a document and Gemma doesn't, or vice versa, if I then ask Copilot a question about that document, it's not going to be able to show me anything about it because my identity does not have access. So it only serves up what the policies already in place represent. Anything you'd add to that, Gem?
No, I think you've answered that fairly well, really well.
That's great. Thank you very much. So moving on to, I've got one here from Marianne. And Marianne says, what is the difference between business standard and premium? I'm also a small business and I get an IT company to advise, and they suggested the standard version, which they've been using for some time now. So I just wondered if you can explain, are there any sort of key differences between standard and premium?
Absolutely. I'd say more so on the security layer. So for example, that data loss prevention that I spoke about. So if you are looking at going into your AI journey, I would recommend having information protection, because what that does is it allows you to have sensitivity labels, for example. So like what Sarah was saying around your documents being classified. So it's really good to have sensitivity labels, which is available in Business Premium. And there's also a huge layer of security. What I'll do, there's a really great site that we have called M365 Maps. So I'll pop the link into the chat as part of the follow-up, and you're able to then do that comparison. It's an interactive map as well, so you can click on, oh, I don't know what information protection means, and you click on it, takes you to the site of our page of how you deploy it and everything. So it's a really good resource. So I'll pop that in the chat.
That'd be really helpful. I know that the slides being shared after today, and obviously this webinar will be recorded and available on the FSB website. So any links would be really welcomed. So we have a question here from another delegate who has said, when will Windows 12 come out and how is Copilot being trained? I think we've touched on the second part of that question in your presentation, but when will Windows 12 come out? Any ideas?
We don't have any visibility on that at this stage. So yes, unfortunately not.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure we get through all the questions as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we have a question in here from Susie. Susie says, what is your advice for tiny businesses? For example, a single person therapy business?
Well, I'd say, Sarah, you can probably touch on that on the AI side, but we work with entrepreneurs all the time that are running a business. So I'd say from a security perspective, it's actually, you don't have to be technical to go and manage your own security. If you log on to your 365 portal, there's something called a secure score. I would go in and check that, and it will give you a score in 0 to 100, and it's going to tell you how secure your tenant is. And then what it will do, if you're say at 80%, it will provide you with recommendations of what you should go and do to go and make yourself more secure. And it will traffic light them. So red is kind of critical. Definitely go and switch this on. So as a sole business owner, that would be the one thing I'd go and look at, is just make sure go look at your secure score and make sure you've implemented everything that you're currently licensed for to make sure you're as secure as possible. But I'm sure Sarah has some recommendations on probably how AI can make you more effective as well as a small business owner.
Yeah, I think like I said in the presentation, SMBs you're wearing multiple hats, and so the ability to be able to scale and tap into the expertise that AI represents on different disciplines is incredibly important. So, that analogy of needing to be a marketeer and a CFO, and lead sales and talk about customer value, all of these different things. And I really think that like the creativity and the perspective it brings wearing each of those disciplines is really, really great when you're thinking, if you've got a 5-person org or you're a solo entrepreneur, you can tap into that expertise. So it's still reliant on you, but you're able to be informed about how to go after the opportunity across all of those different disciplines when you're not necessarily able to hire somebody in each of those areas.
It's definitely a helpful tool. We talked about security just then, and John actually put a question into us, and it says here, is the security you're talking about replacing my existing antivirus? So, for example, they've mentioned here Kaspersky. So that's just a security related question.
Sure. So when we talked about that sort of end-to-end security, we talk about it in those 4 different areas. So do you have something that covers email security? Do you have something that covers your identity security? Do you have something that covers your endpoints, which is where Kaspersky play? So you can use M365, Business Premium and the E5 to have an end-to-end Microsoft security solution, which means you wouldn't need other vendors. But it is completely your decision as a business. I would say we do have free security assessments. I'll find the link and I'll pop it in the chat window. Like I say, they're free, but you can sign up for a security assessment that's going to give you some recommendations based on your security posture. So it's quite hard to say without fully understanding what products you have, but that would be one of my recommendations as well. So I'll pop that in the chat there.
That's a great top tip, that one. So thank you. And we've got a question here from JJ, who's asking, we use OneDrive for sharing files. Does Copilot work with that? Our email server is currently not M365, although we use Outlook for emails. So will Copilot be able to access those?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really great, you'd be a very good use case for Copilot. So SharePoint, I think was the first one. Sorry, it wasn't SharePoint, it was OneDrive for storing your files, which is exactly the dream for using Copilot and for being a really safe and secure way to store your documents. So what's great with OneDrive is you're obviously able to store your files there. You're able to collaborate on them with your team, and you're able to set different security parameters around accessing those files. So if you were to have Copilot and you were to ask Copilot a question that was in your OneDrive files that you as an individual has access to, it'd be able to reason over those files. So for example, you've got a presentation coming up next week, and in the past you've delivered similar presentations. You could ask Copilot a question and it would be able to bring in information from those previous presentations that you've done. Likewise, your question was also around Outlook. So it would also be able to reason over all of your Outlook history. So again, it only has access to what you as an individual do. So it can look at your emails, but don't worry, nobody else is looking at your emails. And so say, for example, you had sent some meetings about that presentation that's next week. It could pull in, for example, prep notes that you need, the audience for that presentation. And then it would also have access to your OneDrive files to be able to say, hey, these are the presentations that you've done in the past, say to similar clients. And then here is the brief from this client about the motivations behind the presentation. So it's a perfect example that it could reason over both. Just to call out, that is M365 Copilot though. Copilot Chat doesn't go into that level of detail of reasoning over your OneDrive or your Outlook, but it's like I said before, it's that free AI solution that you can leverage.
Very helpful. Thank you, Sarah. And I know we spoke about a lot in the presentation, but we do have a question in from Brian, and we may have already covered it, but it's a good always to be reminded. Can Copilot be used to tailor templates with basic client information like headers, stroke titles, and logos?
Yeah, definitely. This is something I do quite frequently. So if you have a template that you would like an organization template, maybe it's got like your company logo on there, certain things that you need to provide, say as part of a process, what you can do is create a file, give it a name, maybe something with template in the title. And then when you're prompting, what you can do is you can / and attach that document. So you can attach the template and you can say, this is the way in which I would like the data to be populated. And actually, we've got some really pretty incredible examples of how templates are being used within social care. So an example where it's a very sensitive industry, and there's a lot of very confidential information about young people. And so we are doing a lot with agents and with templates around what social workers need to populate in terms of templates and how that information then can be populated by a social worker. Because you can imagine we want social workers spending as much time as possible with those who are most vulnerable in our society and not on population templates. So there's a lot of really cool case studies that we've got there. There's one that I've previously shared on LinkedIn as well. And just while I'm speaking, there was a previous question about Copilot creating videos. I've put in the chat, but there is actually some functionality there available around that. Appreciate there are updates every minute. So one of my colleagues has sent that to me, so I've popped that in the chat if someone, the person that asked that question, wants to have a look at the video capability.
Oh, thank you very much. And talk about APIs. This might be one that we can share a link on afterwards or within this session. It's from Pamela. Where is the list of APIs currently available?
Yeah, if I grab the link, I can share it after. That's not a problem.
Very helpful. So I think we're going to be coming up to sort of a last question and some top tips from yourselves. So I'm going to go to Stuart, actually. So one of the final questions. How do we quantify the energy usage of Copilot AI to meet our sustainability reporting requirements?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've made some big public announcements around sustainability, and actually this week we've released a report which I could share with you, Sarah, to go in the follow-up email. And we recently laid out big kind of commitments by 2030 and then by 2050 of removing all carbon emissions that Microsoft has ever made. And you can imagine AI uses a great amount of consumption when we think about the GPUs that are needed to reason over from an AI perspective. And so despite this massive investment, we've actually done even more to then offset all of these carbon emissions. So there's a lot that I can share on this subject. We are definitely the market leader in this space. And it's something that's incredibly close to our hearts because we're not unfamiliar with the impact that the use of AI can have on our planet. And so when we use it, it needs to be meaningful and impactful to warrant this commitment. So yeah, let me share with you, Sarah, that note, and then we can pop that in the follow-up email.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. And that was a great final sort of answer to a final question. So on that, did you want to quickly share a top tip, Sarah, and then Gemma?
Yeah, sure. So my top tip would be go away today and have a play around and try your GCSE framework, goal, context, source, and expectation with a prompt. And if you're not already, start using Copilot Chat for free. It's secure, it's safe, and it's incredibly powerful.
And over to Gemma.
My top tip is definitely go in your admin portal and go check your secure score and see if there's any improvements that you could be making to your security posture. You could also ask, if you're not sure how to do that, ask Copilot Chat and it will help you guide you through it as well.
Thank you so much for that. Great top tips. So we are near to the end of our session today and the time is nearly up. So I just want to thank you very much to all of those who've turned up and tuned in today, and especially those who've submitted the questions. And I know we didn't get through all of them, but we did try our best. So please don't forget to go back and watch the webinar when you can. For anyone who's registered today, you'll shortly receive an email with all the links and resources mentioned on today's webinar, plus the video to watch again on demand. We also have another 2 webinars. We did talk about this in the session, and these are planned for the 17th of June and 24th of June on Transform Your Business, leveraging Copilot, Chat and agents and modern accessibility, developing a digital inclusive strategy for all users. And they both start at 11 a.m. for 1 hour. We'd love to see you there, but if you can't make it, they'll both be recorded and on our on-demand page as well. So if you enjoyed today, please do leave us a Trustpilot review. We really do appreciate that if you can. And finally, a big thank you to Sarah and Gemma who have joined me today from Microsoft for all of your support. So please now visit the hub on the FSB website for more information at www.fsb.org.uk. So a quick call to action for you all today. Please make sure that you take on board the top tips that were shared by Gemma and Sarah. Also, rewatch the video and again, share it with all of your business connections in case they couldn't be here today. Join us at the next 2 webinar sessions. And just one other point, if you wanted to find out how FSB small business owners are redefining intelligence, head over to our resources page, to our policy reports, and you can see the report there. It's a fantastic resource. Go and have a look.